And Tammy, did you get the audience? Okay. And good morning, ladies, once again. And I apologize that I didn't have anything ready, and because I did get the mangoes, but they weren't ripe enough. So when I come back from my trip, then I will see what else I can get for everybody. But I do appreciate your time again and letting me come here and speak. And the topic, as we were talking about, that I'm going to speak about today, is the famous West Virginia, not only West Virginia, but in history during the Civil War, the famous feud between the two families of the Hatfield and McCoy. And I know that most of you do know a little bit about the subject, at least, being from West Virginia. And to tell you this in just a matter of a few minutes, I can only touch on a few of the subjects because it is such a wide, a large story, a very detailed and complex story as to why this happened, with many possible different reasons as to why these events occurred during the Civil War time. Many details are still unknown about it. Newspapers and documents have written about the story from different accounts of relatives of participants and participants themselves. Throughout the time, could have gotten confused and probably did in different accounts, and so there are a variety of things that happened, and fabrications actually by newspapers, because it was also not just between two families, but since they were very large families, they also had political influence during that time on both the Kentucky and the West Virginia sides during the Civil War, because that was at about the same time as the war. To touch on a little bit about the history, the beginnings of the Hatfield family was a man named Ephraim Hatfield. And he moved to Russell County, Virginia in 1774. And he actually was the great-grandfather to the famous William Anderson, but better known as Devil Anse Hatfield, who was, of course, the leader of the Hatfield gang, clan, I should say. And William McCoy, they moved to Johns Creek, Kentucky in 1804. And he was the grandfather to Randall, or Rand I, the leader of the McCoy group. Both families had land, both families, they actually made whiskey, because in the times that people, very economic, struggling times, they lived in a very, very rough area of the frontier. Actually, the environment was very, very rough in the valley, mountainous, and those times, and so they did what they could, as other families did. And when Devil Anse was testifying, when he got indicted and was on trial, he actually said that prior to the feud, the two families were actually friends, good friends. It's just that different things led that to them. Political views during the Civil War could be a factor. There was marriages between the two families. Hatfield had married a McCoy and vice versa. But one of the famous accusations was of the hog stealing, the theft of one of the family's hogs. And so, but the most serious incident in this book that it staged was the death of Harmon McCoy in 1865. And so all these things contributed to this great feud that lasted for quite a long time. Years of unrest is what it led to, turbulence of the state of Kentucky, because they were, the state would get bad, they were thinking bad reviews, and social and political, unrest came about of it because it was such a large, dealing with two very large families. And on January 1st, the bloodiest event that had happened was on New Year's Day in 1888, when the attack on the McCoy family from the Hatfields, leading to three members of the McCoy family dying. And so it started, not just started, but the law and all the governors and everything, they were getting tired of it. There was just too much going on, even the family members. So in 1889, they did indict, they had the trial of the Hatfields in 1889 after indicting them, and there were convictions due to the crimes. And after a while reading this book, it stated on how members were remorseful that something like this could happen, because there was a whole slew of things that led up to this, different economic trials, political, just the times itself that led to such tragedy amongst friends, two families that were actually friends, from the Devil Anse Hatfield himself stating that. And I want to read the last part, just a part of the epilogue about these occurrences. With such widespread interest in it, it is ironic but not surprising that the Hatfield-McCoy feud has become more encrusted with myth and half-truths than any other Southern mountain vendetta. Yet its human and dramatic qualities need no embellishment. Moreover, the character of the people involved, the geographical and physiographical restraints upon them, the stern demands of a frontier environment, the bitterness and suspicion engendered by the Civil War, the weakness of law enforcement, the scarcity of schools and churches, and the powerful influence of the family and the clan, all of which had their impact, give the feud the character of a social and cultural phenomenon. When all the contributing factors are given proper attention, the study of the feud becomes instructive as well as exciting. As history or as drama, the Hatfield-McCoy feud will unquestionably retain its primacy as the best known and most interesting of all American family vendettas. And so I read that because I found that to actually be true after only just reading a little bits and pieces of this book. And it is very interesting to find out about the history and to know more about it. Again, I want to thank you ladies for taking the time and listening to me. And I hope I was able to, the facts that I've taken from this book that have come from documents on both sides, the West Virginia and Kentucky, and of actual accounts, people speaking. And so I believe that this author has made it as genuine as he could find the different things leading to the incidents of this very famous historical events. And again, thank you very much for being an awesome audience. Did I have enough time? No, I have to have enough time and stuff like